10th, 2018. The intent of our meeting this evening is the public interview of Region 4 candidates who will be coming into Council Rock Region 4. I'll begin with this. We'll all rise, and please, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll ask Mrs. Rice to call the roll, please.
Andy Block.
Here.
Mark Fowler.
Here.
Carl McKessie.
Here.
Edward Tinney.
Here.
Michael Thorwald.
Here.
Jerry Brown.
Present.
Denise Brooks.
Here.
Mary Ann.
Here.
By way of apology, I will explain that we were awaiting for two board members who were otherwise committed in the district to arrive, and so our 7 o'clock start was pushed back slightly. With that, I would normally open the for public comment. As there is no one here, we're going to move on from public comment, and at that point, we're going to I need a motion to accept the resignation letter from Mrs. Thomas.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Unless there's an objection, I'm going to move to accept this with unanimous consent. Very good, it is accepted. Also with our regrets, but we will move on. We're going to move on to this section now, where we're going to take an opportunity to speak with our candidates. We are blessed to have two candidates with us this evening. We had enough other candidates who over time have elected to withdraw their name from the application process. We have two candidates. We have confirmed that both of the candidates do live within the appropriate region and comply with the aspects of law required for them to be candidates and to serve on the Council Rock School Board as a representative of Region 4. With that, I will introduce each of the candidates and allow them each. I will introduce each candidate, and that candidate will then have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and commentary to the board. We'll begin first with Mr. Hidalgo, Mr. Joe Hidalgo. Good evening, Joe.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and take your 2 minutes to comment.
All right, I'm just going to read portions of my statement. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Hidalgo. I have come forward tonight to present myself as a candidate for the opening school board. If chosen, I look forward to collaborating with all of you to further serve the common good of the citizens and students of the school district. This decision was not taken lightly, as I understand that the many challenges we currently face, and I understand the commitment and energy it will take to serve in this capacity in good faith, with empathy and passion. I hope, and it is my hope, that the results attributed to my efforts will be tremendously positive, leave a tremendously positive impact on the process, and leave the school district with results that continue to enhance the pride, the tradition of excellence in our educational community as a whole. I have never been one to shy away from hard work or long hours to get a job done. And my greatest motivation is in helping others however I can. To that point, I volunteer in the school district as a homeroom parent at Marine M. Welsh Elementary School, and also partake in parent involvement programs such as mystery reader and guided writing. Tomorrow, I've been invited to volunteer at the Richboro Middle School to interview students as part of their guided exploration curriculum, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I also teach CCD to public school children at the Queen of the Universe Parish in Levittown. Recently, I've been familiarizing myself as best I can with the current issues facing the Council Rock School District by attending all of the public school board meetings and committee meetings. I've reached out to every board member to gain insight into the job at hand. I have had discussions with many constituents to listen to their concerns. All in all, I believe that I am the right fit for the position. In conclusion, I offer a well-rounded plethora of talents, sound judgment, strong character, and a willingness to learn. I enjoy listening to opposing views and have a willingness to find room to compromise and strive to bring people together on all matters. I believe the opportunity is right for me to step up in this capacity and give back to the community that I care so much about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. Our second candidate this evening is Kent Petrie. Mr. Petrie, if you'd like to take 2 minutes, please do.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us here this evening, and thanks for all your time. Like I said, my name is Kent Petrie. I'm a husband to a special education educator in the Lower Bucks school system. I'm a small business owner within Richboro. We've lived here. This is our 4th year here in the school district, and we hope to be here for many more years to come. In researching the board in this position, I think that Council Rock is very lucky to have all of you serving on the board and representing their interests. And I think you're also very lucky to have had multiple candidates who are well qualified and I think have the best interests of this community at heart. I look forward to answering your questions, and I think that no matter what, you'll make a good decision here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. With that, we're going to have an opportunity for the board members to ask each candidate questions. Your first, we'll begin at one end of the table and work our way around. Each board member will have an opportunity to ask one question, which will go to both candidates, first to one, then the other, and then an individual question. If there's a question that you wish to ask one candidate and not the other because of something in their history or exposure or something you've heard, please avail yourself of the opportunity. We're okay to begin with you, Mr. Thorwart, with your microphone?
Sure. I'll ask an easy one. I'll throw you a softball. What do you think is the biggest challenge to the school district right now for the next school year? And I'll leave it wide open for you.
For me?
For both of you. One of
Well, to begin with Joe, yes, please.
Okay. What I think about for me, if I coming on board, obviously passing, looking at the budget is going to be a challenge. Obviously, top of the list for the community is probably the redistricting situation that we have. And I think that's the biggest challenge we're going to have is redistricting and looking at capital improvement plans for the long term. And there's others, but that's the biggest one.
Mr. Petrie?
I agree. I think it's fairly obvious looking back through the board meeting minutes and reviewing the board meetings that have happened that redistricting is by far and away the biggest issue facing the board, as well as the incorrect demographic information provided by Sundance Associates and how to go about correcting that in moving forward. I also think given the climate today that the crisis plans and the safety of the students that have been referenced here are of utmost importance and concern to the community.
Very good, thank you. You want to follow?
No follow-up at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Block?
Okay, yeah, I've got a question and potentially a follow. First, thanks, gentlemen, for stepping up to put yourselves out there. It's no small thing. And a huge commitment on your part, so thank you for being here. If you could each tell me a little bit about the experience that you have working on boards or in large cross-functional groups.
Beginning with Mr. Petrie, please.
I don't have any experience serving on boards as far as cross-functional groups. I've been an attorney for a decade, and you necessarily have to deal with all walks of life and people of different backgrounds, and you need to take into account all of the sources of information, because if you don't, you won't be an attorney for very long. So.
Okay. As far as being on a board, I don't have any official board experience. I've been something that I've always been attracted to, as I may have mentioned in my letter. I'm the last of 8 kids, and I'm pretty much that's a board if you want to know about it. So that's my answer.
Great. Then my follow-on would be if you'd both talk about the redistricting being a priority going forward, or a challenge going forward, and potentially being part of a board that's got 8 different opinions right now, potentially. I'd love to understand what the core principles you would bring to the redistricting piece. Where do you stand based on what you've seen, or what would your approach be? What were the big things that you would say?
Start with Mr. Hidalgo.
core principles that I would bring to the board regarding redistricting is listening to all sides, gathering as much information as you can from the community, understanding where the business office is coming from, the administration's coming from, take into account all the board members' views, and in the end, I'm a junkie for information and numbers, so you got to take a hardcore look at the long-term effects and projections of the decisions we make with redistricting. You know, if you wanted me to get specific, I could, as far as what the community is concerned about. But you know, I know there's a lot of concern with communities, not just the ones who are affected directly by it. And there's two sides to every story. So I think that answers it.
Very good. Mr. Petrie?
When considering the redistricting issues facing this board, I agree with Joe that information is most important, but I think in anything I did under the guise of this board, my primary concern is always the children. I think that a strong education for the kids can serve the community in many ways. But I think that you also have to be realistic in your goals and make sure that you're being fair to all parties.
You can keep going.
That's it. I just think you have to listen to everybody, make sure you're being as fair as possible to everybody. But I mean, ultimately, my concern is with the children and making sure that they're being served. But I understand that there are realities in the financial aspects of the redistricting process.
Thank you. Mr. Tate, you'll begin your questioning with Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Grubb. Gentlemen, a couple of years ago, we had the unfortunate duty to make some significant budget cuts and eliminated somewhere in the range of 38, 40 positions. And we've recouped some of that loss since then, but to the point of the budget and controlling costs and managing taxpayer dollars, how do you feel about the issue of property taxes, the proposal to eliminate the property tax, and the prospect of some point during your 2 or 4 years on the board having to raise property taxes? Mr. Petrie.
I mean, to give a complete answer to that at this point might be a little bit presumptuous on my part just because of the level of information that I have. But just to address your question, like I said previously, I understand that there are realities associated with participating in a school board as far as the taxes and the finances and everything else. So if that's what is necessary in order to provide for these children and make sure that our community has a strong base moving forward, then I think that's something you need to consider. To tell you here today that I'm all for raising taxes or not raising taxes, it would depend upon the information presented to me.
As far as raising taxes, or if you talk about 4 years ago when you made all those personnel cuts, the first question I would be is, did that affect the education of the students? Also, as far as raising taxes, unfortunately, you know, it's a reality. I know that I'm not into raising taxes lightly. We've already had 2 tax increases the last 2 years, I believe, and maybe there'll be another one. You guys voted on not going over the 2.4 this year. In the past, we've gone and not raised taxes, and then followed by years of 10 and 12% increases, I believe, or something along that line that I heard mentioned in one of the previous boards. So I want to make sure that we're keeping our buildings in good shape, that the students are getting all of the bells and whistles that can be possibly afforded, but at the same time being fiscally responsible to the as a steward of the people's, the taxpayers' trust.
Thank you both.
You have a follow-up? No. Ms. McKee?
Thank you both. Really appreciate you making the time and commitment to be with here tonight. So I kind of want to follow up on what I was hearing about students and learning, and just recently becoming chair of the Academic Standards Committee. I'm curious to know, I think we all take great pride in Council Rock and see it as such an outstanding school district. I would wonder, what is your vision for maintaining the educational excellence of the district? How do we go about meeting the needs of every student, providing for students with special needs? What do you see as your vision for maintaining that in Council Rock?
Okay. Well, as a parent, I see the material that comes home, and I see the technology that's available to the parents. And so there's certain initiatives I could suggest that we could use to enhance parent involvement in education, especially in the early elementary level. I think the materials that we pick, the vendors that we use to educate our children is important. And I had mentioned before that maybe something like First in Math, where I'm pretty excited about that technology that's available, and I see where Goodnow and maybe another Newtown school is really knocking it out, because it's on a district, state, school level that they keep track of this stuff. And I'd like to see more initiatives to facilitate some kind of competition or reward system for people that might affect the math skills of children in a very positive way by doing something along those lines. So there's a lot we can do, I think, being creative, making sure our teachers are happy and have the tools they need. Very important.
I agree that technology plays a big role in educating our students, and as long as I've been here in Council Rock, I've been impressed with the school system. I've always thought that our teachers were doing a great job and that they seem to be setting up the students for success. To directly answer your question, I would say that, and again, I don't have all of the information, so I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth and sound foolish, but I think that what's important is providing a strong foundation for all students as a starting point, and then going into particularized, special education plans and things like that, but making sure that, I understand that there are statutory and legal considerations with special education, but I think if you can focus on the foundation that all of the children are receiving, and you start from that point, you can better serve everybody, including the special education needs kids.
Thank you both.
Well, I guess this begins with Mr. Petrie. As a board of 8, we each seem now, and hopefully to have a 9th by the end of the evening, we each bring some talent, skill, or acclimate some special talent or area of interest. And so I ask you, it's kind of a combination question, which is, which of our committees that we currently have would you be interested in serving upon? And in part of the same answer is, what special skills, talents, or experience do you bring to the board that will help to bolster what is already a group of 8 elected and the superintendent? So I'll begin with Mr. Petrie.
As far as boards that I'm interested in, I think the redistricting board obviously needs as much help as it's willing to get. I know we've seen some indications that people may be growing weary of being on that board or need a little break. So I would be happy to help fill in there if I'm eligible. I'm also intrigued by the Academic Standards Committee, but I know that Ms. Thomas played a big part in the finance for the school board. So I think to address your particularized education or background, I hate to keep going back to it, but as an attorney, you have to be a quick learner. You start off thinking you might be the smartest guy in the room, and you quickly realize that you're not ever, and that you need to be able to read and process the information no matter what it's about, because you don't know what's walking through the door, you don't know what issue is going to arise, and being uneducated or unprepared isn't an option. So you need to get yourself educated quickly and comprehensively.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up with Mary Ann's question. I didn't speak to special education, but I do know that Council Rock has the in-house. They're not using the Bucks County IU as much as other school districts, and I think they should be commended for how fantastic they do. From what I see, the special education program in our school is very, very good. I like what they're doing for the kids, from what I see. As far as committees, academics is where the rubber meets the road, and that's what's really important to me, the academics. So I would love to be part of the academic committee. The others are very important too. The finance committee, maybe with my background in finance, that could help at least me to make some educated, have some educated input for the board members to ponder. And but mostly I'm a people person. I'm a bridge builder. I'd like to bring people together and conform consensus. And I think that's what I can bring to the board.
Second question I have in that space is an important aspect of this board is actually the independence of political party, and to really run to serve on the board for the purpose of serving on the board. It is interesting to note that oftentimes we don't know the party, and we don't care about the party of the persons we serve with because we're more intent on. So I want to just make sure that you recognize that it requires an independent aspect of it. I'd also be interested to know about if you've spoken with other people in the community who may have suggested to you to be on the board, and who those were, and if you needed to get any approval from anybody else to be on the board. So I'll begin with Mr. Hidalgo.
I don't know if I needed approval from anybody to be on the board. I've spoke to many people in the past about whether I should run for this office or not in the last month or so, as far as like asking someone like my sister, who's a principal in the arena here in Pennsbury. I know Jerry and I had a conversation where I first introduced myself. He's the first one I spoke to, and then worked my way around. I told him a story about how I met Larry Weinstein at a social party or something like that, and I told him I seen you on TV, you know. And long story short is I showed my interest to him, along with other board members from different various boards that I've had a conversation that I appreciate what you do. You know, it's not an easy job, but it's something that I've had an affinity for. So, but you know, I would say that I didn't have to get any approval for anybody, but it may have been Larry Weinstein that made me aware that the board was opening position with Wendy planning on resigning. So I got to speak to her too about it.
Mr. Petrie?
I submitted my name for consideration at the prompting of my wife. She's been, as I mentioned earlier, she has been a special education teacher here in Philadelphia for about 8 years now. So I'm here at the prompting of my wife. She thinks I'll do a great job. That's for y'all to decide, really. My wife will disagree with you if you choose Joe, but I'm sure Joe will do a wonderful job as well. So I think you're in a win-win situation here. No, I don't need any permission or to seek anybody's leave to run here. I spoke to my wife, spoke to my neighbors, and ultimately here I am, if a little late.
And as I pass it on to Mr. Bialik, you both gave basically this, which was when I interviewed, I needed one person's permission. That's the person in bed with me each night. So you're much along the same line.
Can't do anything like that.
Would be my wife. Thank you. Mr. Bialik.
Okay. Well, first of all, I too appreciate you both submitting your names. This is not an easy position to hold. Example being, here we are on an off meeting night and at 7 o'clock. And I thank the board members for their questions. It's very helpful. There's a lot that goes on with the district, and it often can feel very overwhelming when you're trying to focus on the kids. Joe, you used the term where the rubber meets the road is really educating these kids and making sure they have the best education possible. and we often get caught up in buildings and contracts and things like that. So what if and I guess it's going to Joe first, so I'll go Mr. Flo. So if you had one thing that you wanted to accomplish while you're on the board, if you're appointed to the board, what do you think that would be?
Good question. That's the one thing.
If there was one thing that you think you have to speak about Jerry's question, if you had your expertise and where you think you can help or what you can bring to the table, and one thing that you'd like to see bettered for this district.
I'd like to see, just when I left, that people said that I did a darn good job at what I did and that I cared, and that the students actually saw an improvement in their education. Maybe scores go up, maybe sports does better, but people, the pride of the community is enhanced by me helping and cheering people on. It means a lot, you know, as a board member, to support the children emotionally, financially, and however else we can, to give them all the tools they need to succeed. So if I can better what we deliver, then I've done a good job. If people can say, yeah, this is better than it was 5 years ago, then I know I did a good job.
Mr. Petrie?
You know, in going back through the board meeting minutes, I mean, something that you guys deal with a lot and something that I think that I could bring a little bit of, I mean, my viewpoint to the table is in the bidding process and the contractual review and things like that, but that's all very boring. I think during during the present climate we find ourselves in, there's a giant concern about safety of our children. And I think that if I could accomplish one thing on the board, it would be to ensure that we did everything we could to make sure that our children are safe when we send them off to the schools. And I don't think that they are unsafe. I don't think that our schools are unsafe, but to ensure that they are safe and that we've looked at all sources of information to just ensure their safety. That would be a wonderful achievement.
Okay, thank you.
I'm clearly sitting at the wrong end of the table, as I heard all of you like tick off all my questions. So I guess what I'll ask is, you know, there's no question that obviously we each approach this and we try to do our best, and we always have the intentions of the school district, you know, top of mind and caring for the students and making things better. But the district has dealt with a lot of difficult issues. And I guess I wonder, as you looked back on some of the things that have happened in Council Rock, say in the past year or so, what are your reflections on things that you think we can improve on? Or, I mean, they were good at the time, but if we were to face similar challenges, what areas do you think we need to strengthen, and how would you contribute to helping make that happen?
And I think that begins with Mr. Petrie.
I think that a lot of the major issues that seem to come before the board or problems that have arisen subsequent thereto, I don't know that you can lay at the feet of this board. I think it's just, again, making sure that you have all of the information and that you're doing the best with that information that you can, and that you're being fair to everybody with your eye towards the ultimate goal of serving these children. I don't know that I have an answer. I think that one very important goal of the board, and I don't know that you are failing in this goal, so I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but being a liaison to the community and making sure that everybody has a chance to be heard and that you're taking into account those viewpoints. If you can better anything, I mean, that you can't go wrong in bettering your community outreach and bringing people into the process.
I was not suggesting that we fail. I just want to clarify my question.
Oh,
It's more about when you deal with these issues and the self-reflection that we as a district have to have as we go through these things, because some of these are repeating themes. So it's not like, you know, issues end. We deal with certain things in the moment, and then they could come back to us in different ways. So it's more a function of like, if you reflect on the past year, what is that learning that should carry us through, and where do you in particular fit in to help us with those challenges?
So do you want Mr. Petrie to answer the
So I don't know
question
if that
again?
changes-
Because now
I'm
it's a
sorry if
different
my-
question. Now it's a different question, what you asked. Mr. Petrie, Mr. Hidalgo was going to answer.
Well, I just wanted to clarify it. So
I think it is she clarified it, but that would be my answer, that that you're not passing judgment, you do the best you can without having been on the board and seeing the gears turn. Can somebody on the outside make a judgment on your performance? But if you're talking about what we can do to do better, not saying that you haven't done a good job. I think you have done a good job. It's not easy. There's no right or wrong, really, because you're going to take 10 years to figure out if your decisions you make now were good decisions or not. But I believe we can do more. I think you're doing just the website alone is a huge improvement. I'm loving whatever you did with the website. It's just coming up now even. It's a good job. And that's part of communicating with the public. The emails are coming out now. You're letting people know when the board meetings are. The superintendent's communicating when an issue comes up. I think you're looking at a new broadcast system you might be using, but communicating with the public is something that we can always improve on.
Do you have a second question?
yeah, I'm going to go in a different direction. So as a follow-up, I just want to say, what can you tell us about yourselves that, we wouldn't, beyond what was in your application, what would you like us to know about you and the things you've done in your life, or things that would help get a better understanding of how you might serve on this board?
Is that going to be me first?
That's going to start with you, Mr. Hidalgo.
All right. Well, I did submit a bio to Susan, if you didn't get a chance to look at that, but there's a lot to me that's not in that letter. I'm pretty much been all my life a jack of all trades. Anything that I've done, I've been really good at. I'm really passionate. When I do something and believe in it, I give it my all. I put my hard work in. I'm a family man. I'm pretty talented with music. I'm a sportsman. I'm an outdoorsman, and so I care about the sports a lot. I believe in team work, and it's always been something my dad always said, teamwork, And so I've instilled in me is caring about everybody, regardless of who they are or what they believe. Everybody deserves dignity up and down the lines, and I want to provide that type of caring and to the board, try to keep the peace.
I think all you need to know about me is, I think, and maybe my position would change on the board, but from the outside looking in, my position is that bringing too much of yourself to the position and coloring the information you get and receive in this position with your own experiences and your own biases or predilections isn't really going to serve anybody as good as an open mind. And I think I have a very open mind, but as you can tell by maybe, I'm sure I didn't make any friends here, but I was 20 minutes late because I had to finish coaching my kids' softball team. So the kids will always come first with me, no matter what, even if it makes all of you very upset at me. So I apologize, but that's what you need to know about me, is that the kids will come first, and I will have an open mind.
Just to be clear, the biography thank you for submitting a biography to Mrs. O'Grady. That was actually in preparation for that when we appoint somebody this evening, we wanted to have something we could tell the community about you. So you both picked up at some point in your conversation this evening about the importance of communicating and the work that Mrs. O'Grady is doing with the website. And your bios were not provided for the board to review. They were provided for Mrs. O'Grady to have to publish tonight. Mrs. McKessie.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think I know there is not one member of this board that I would not say does not have a tremendous work ethic, We all have our various work styles and our different manners of interaction. I would be curious to know what your thoughts are with regard to how you would interact with, or what your relationships that you envision might be with our superintendent or with members of our administration or our cabinet.
I think that goes to Mr. Petrie first.
I mean, I hope it's a friendly relationship, an open relationship with a free exchange of ideas and information. And if that's your relationship, I think everybody's going to be served well here. I understand that the board takes a lot of time and responsibility and work, and you know, as my kids have been very young, I've kind of pulled myself back from work a little bit. I have my own law firm. I run basically out of my basement, my office in my basement. But now as they're growing a little older, I find myself with some more time, as they like to leave their dad alone and they go read books or play and do their own thing. I need to, you know, ramp myself back up, and you know, I'm not afraid of hard work, and that's the reason I'm here.
I envision working with Dr. Frazier and Doug and Robert in the business office and the facilities arena. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. I want to try. I know the responsibility of the board is to supervise or to oversee what's going on with the administration, and so I think we'll have a great relationship. I think he seems like a great guy, and you know what? We don't have to agree on everything, but we can try. I can try to work with him to better the schools however I can. I'm basically at the mercy of the constituents, of the people of this school district. So I'll put my heart and soul into working with him and everybody else to understand what our challenges are and tackle them. And you just keep going. You know, I've been in situations in my life where, oh boy, you just have to get down and just keep digging yourself out. You know, not out, but you know, pull yourself out, and just when time gets tough get going. Yeah.
May I ask a second unrelated question?
Please do.
When I first started on this board, my youngest daughter was in first grade. She is now a sophomore in high school. I had 2 children in elementary school, and I had 1 daughter in middle school. I remember the first day I was on this board, my daughter came home from school and said, I won't say the child's name, but she said, so-and-so wants a hot tub. And it was another first grader who said, hey, I hear your mom's on the board. Can we get a hot tub in school? So because you both have kids sort of in this system, I won't lie and I won't say that sometimes that is not a challenge, both for yourselves and for your children at times. There are times where I would say that my children would say that I have advocated for them less or differently by nature of my position on this board. That's my family's problem. I don't suggest that that's everybody's problem by any stretch. There have been times where I have been with my children, or my daughters have said to me, it's very annoying to go anywhere with you. It takes us 3 hours to get through the grocery store, because people see you, people want to speak to you, people want to have an opportunity to talk to you. There is a direct impact. I'm curious as to how you might handle that. I would not lie to say that there have not been times where I have gone grocery shopping in closer to my work. In order, you know, there are difficult times. There are times during redistricting that I'm like, I'll do that grocery shopping on my lunch hour. I guess I would like your thoughts on how you will handle the relationships with your family, with your community members, because you just don't always agree. You just don't see it the same way, and it can be very challenging at times for any of us in this position.
We begin with Mr. Hidalgo for the.
Well, without being in the position and experiencing it, it's really hard to give you an answer on what I will do. I mean, I live by my principles. The principles are giving people the golden rule, treating people as you want to be treated. So seeing people in the grocery store, at Tanner's or something like that, I wouldn't mind. I mean, if they're gonna, I gotta check out, it's okay. You can email me if you want, and I'd be more than happy to follow up with you. But I like talking to people. That's what I do all day. So I don't have a problem with that, and I sincerely care about what people have to say. I don't judge them right away. I have to take what they say and digest it and come up with my own conclusions. But everybody has a right, especially when you're in a public position, to state their concerns to you, and you have the obligation to listen and understand if you can. And as far as the children, I'm not worried about my kids at all. You speak to I'll talk to the kids, her friends, and ask them what they think. Go for it. Great. I mean, I'm not going to advocate any less for my children just being on the board. I don't think it even makes a difference either way. But I advocate for my kids who need advocating, and some of them stand on their 2 feet just fine. I brought them up to stand up for themselves. And, you can't stop what other people do. You just have to deal with it,
I think there are 2 points to be made in response, probably a lot more, but I have 2. One is that, as I mentioned earlier, and as Joe just said, I mean, you're in a role here as a liaison between the board and the community. So to think that you're not going to get any feedback is unrealistic. Maybe I have 3 points. I'll just keep talking until he holds his hand up. So the second one is that I think that so long as you've put thought into your actions and you have a reason behind them, and you've taken the time to attempt to listen to everybody and be fair to everybody that you can when it's appropriate, so long as you have a reason for your actions, you can handle these kind of interactions very well. Nobody's up there flying by the seat of your pants. And I think, you learn very quickly in court, if you fly by the seat of your pants, you're going to get in trouble. I think it's the same thing here. Be prepared, have a reason for your actions, and you can deal with those kinds of things.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is the board up for a second round, or have we asked the questions we want to ask? I'll look for anyone who wants to ask the questions we go around, but I'm not going to call each person.
I'd like to ask one.
Mr. Block. You'll begin with Mr. Petrie.
Okay, Mr. Petrie. The unique nature of working on a board of 9 is that it takes a majority, hopefully a bigger majority, to get things done, but inevitably somebody always finds themselves in the minority, or a group of people potentially do, and sometimes that's a pretty tough place to be, especially when you believe passionately in something. So I'm curious, on a board of 9, what your approach would be when you might find yourself in the minority, advocating for something you felt very passionately about.
Well, again, as an attorney, I'm used to losing all the time. I advocate for stuff every day, and I probably lose every other day. So I'm used to it. I don't like it, but with respect to this board, I think that advocating for, I wanted to say what you believe in, but I don't think that that's right. Advocating for the position that you support, given the information you've been provided with, is important. If you think the information leads one way, you have a responsibility to try and convince the other 9. But I think you also have to keep an open mind that maybe your interpretation of the information might be off, and be willing to be swayed to the other side, because I think presenting a unified front on some of these more emotional issues is very important. And if you're in the minority, without abandoning your principles or your position, allowing yourself to be swayed to another side if appropriate, is an important thing to keep in mind.
So this is before a vote's been taken. You're looking, and you only have 4 votes, and this is something that you're carrying. It's your baby. Listening to all the other opposing views, you probably look for the one person that may be closest to your view, and try to get them to change their view. As long as what you believe in is your heart, then it's okay to deliberate and to try to, I don't know, I've never been on a board, so I don't know what the ethics and the etiquettes are and the sunshine rules and all this stuff, but I'm sure you guys are always, talking one-on-one or whatever. I believe that's reasonable to do. Then you survey the field and you go after the person that you think you can change. That's what I think you're supposed to do. I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but if you want 5 votes, you got to go for. You have to go for the votes, right?
Gentlemen, we also arranged to give you 90 seconds to summarize. You can use as much of that as you wish, each, not together. I think we open with Mr. Hidalgo to start, and so we're going to open with Mr. Petrie for closing comments for 90 seconds, or however much you wish to take the question.
Sure. I won't take up a lot of your time. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for having us here tonight. I don't know that you have an easy decision, but I think whichever one you make is going to be a good one. I think Joe's presented himself well here tonight, and I'm confident that the Council Rock will be in good hands no matter which direction you move forward. I'll just say that, again, I'll always have the best interests of the kids in mind. I'll have an open mind, and I look forward to hopefully working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. Mr. Hidalgo?
Thank you for that, Ken. I want to thank Ken for mentioning that. I think that he would make a good candidate too. He presented himself well, and I want to thank the board for and the administration and all the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears that go into running a school district as fine as this one. I went to Chamonix High School and always had an admiration for Council Rock. They always were a very good school district, both with sports and academics and just all around good reputation. I think we have a lot of good school districts around here. We're blessed in Bucks County to have such a strong backing from the public for our schools. So I just want to thank everybody really for the opportunity to come here and maybe be part of the success and continued success that's going on here. It's not an easy job for any of us. So especially when the public is really sometimes get up in arms with things that go on, which hopefully we can minimize that in the future. So it's not what I've seen from my experience is it's a tough job, and I'm willing to take it on. I think I will do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm sure I speak for the board that you have not made our job easier tonight. It would have been great had one of you fallen down on the job, but neither of you did. I'll also caution you that we did a quick assessment. In the time I've been on the board, for the number of persons who've been appointed, the average duration for those persons on the board is 9.16 years. So I caution you about that now. At this point, we come to a point of a little bit of deliberation among the board. Or I'm going to go around. I'm probably going to start at the opposite end of our questions and ask for who your preferred of the two well-qualified candidates and well-represented candidates, which you would prefer as we go down around the board. This will hopefully lead us to a majority one way or the other. I honestly don't think we can make a bad decision tonight. I don't think it's just not possible given the quality of the two candidates. So if there's any discussion, we're open for discussion. If anyone would like to bring any topics up or questions or concerns. This is like changing your clothes in public. All right. Mrs. McKessie, if I'm going to ask, just if you would, we'll go around and express who your first choice would. I'm sure you would be able to work with either of the two, but if you would express your first choice.
I certainly would, and I thank you both for being here. I have sat in your seat, and it is not an easy one to sit in. I do believe at this point my first choice would be Mr. Hidalgo.
Mrs. Brooks.
I want to thank you both for coming tonight. It is not easy. And I really appreciate, we all appreciate that you put yourself out there. At this point, my preference would be for Mr. Hidalgo.
Mr. Bialik.
I'm going to say thank you too. It's not easy, and it's especially considering the amount of time that you're offering to commit. At this point, I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Hidalgo.
I also want to thank you both, and I think we would be well served with either of you. But at this time, my preference would be Mr. Hidalgo.
Mr. Petrie, I wrote down, you remarked that you'd be willing to serve on the redistricting committee. That's quite possible. That is a public committee down the road. There's also going to be other public committees, and you said you would welcome working with us, and I hope there's opportunities to do that in the future. That said, Mr. Hidalgo, you've shown your commitment to this position, attending numerous meetings and reaching out to various board members, and I think you've persuaded the majority, or at least you've persuaded me that you're the best choice for this position. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you. Both great candidates. I thought you could have complemented each other well if we could have squished you together. We have the absolute perfect candidate, but I agree with my peers. I appreciate, in particular, Mr. Hidalgo's work to really understand the job from our perspectives, but also the perspectives of the meetings. Like I said, either would have been a great candidate, and I would have loved to work with either at this point. I agree with my peers. Look forward to working with Mr. Hidalgo.
Mr. Thorward.
Thank you. I'll start by saying thank you. You're hearing it a lot. One of the things that was stunning to me is seeing two gentlemen sit there and state why they are good at it, and never once state why the other is not good at it. And we need more of that. And I commend you both for that. That mannerism. I agree with Andy. I wish I could work with both of you. There was no bad candidate tonight, which is great, but I'll stand with the rest of my board, and my preference right now is Mr. Hidalgo.
We talked about reaching 5, so my issue is non-existent. My vote is of no consequence. I would also agree, and I have to say that in part, my motivation is not of the ability looking forward. Part of it reflects upon the activities to date in terms of being invested in the board and doing the reach out. I appreciate both candidates coming forward. Mr. Hidalgo has exhibited more interest to date and more involvement and done the reach out. So I will join with my other 7 peers and make it unanimous for Mr. Hidalgo. That said, Mr. Petrie, to echo Mr. Tate's commentary, strongly would enjoy your services, and there are many opportunities to serve this community and this school district, and we would ask. I'm going to now ask for a motion for the appointments according to the will of the board that we've just expressed.
One of those ladies got one ready.
I don't do that anymore.
And you want to say replace Mrs. Thomas?
Titanic plates.
Wow. You remember that, huh?
I do. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Joseph Hidalgo to fill the vacancy in Region 4 created by the resignation of Wendy Thomas in accordance with Section 315 of the School Code.
Second.
I believe it's best served by a round calling of the roll individually. Yeah, sorry.
Andy Blunt,
Yes.
Mike Farland,
Yes.
Tom Kissing,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Michael Bowler,
Yes.
Jerry Brooks,
Yes.
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes.
Very good. Congratulations, Mr. Hidalgo.
If I may, gentlemen, you have both received a number of words of thanks here this evening for putting yourselves out there and being willing to serve the school district in this ever so important capacity. We have a wonderful, wonderful school community here in Council Rock. And I just want to echo those words and join those sentiments of saying thank you to both of you. So Mr. Hidalgo, congratulations. I certainly look forward to working with you. And Mr. Petrie, I cannot thank you enough. This is one of the reasons why we have such an outstanding school district, is because of people like you, people like these board members who serve the children of this community as well as the taxpayers of this community. So I do have a certificate of appreciation that I'd like to bring down to you. That's very sincere on behalf of our entire school district and our entire school community, Mr. Petrie, for putting yourself out there for this position.
Thank
We're
you.
deeply appreciative.
I'm just glad there were so many qualified people, and Joe's going to do a great job. Thanks, everybody.
And when he does it, maybe you'll let him know.
I'll sit back there and throw tomatoes at you.
Just so you know, in 2000, when I was appointed, the man who was up for appointment ran against me in the fall. So this is not a fait accompli. Thank you, Mr. Petrie. With that, we're going to move on to the part where we have a special guest with us this evening. We are honored to have the presence of Judge Mick Petrucci, who has come with us this evening to administer the oath of office to the newly elected school board representative for Council Rock Region 4. Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You ready? Sure. Wife's not here, she wishes she was. So let me stand right here because I know the camera comes on this here, so. So you need to hold it? Yeah.
Nobody brought one.
Nobody brought one. Okay. Are you ready? You're going to repeat after me. I, Joseph L. Hidalgo. I, Joseph L. Hidalgo. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support, obey, and defend. That I will support, obey, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And as a school board director. And as a school board director. Of the Council Rock School District. Of the Council Rock School District. I will discharge the duties. I will discharge the duties. Of my office with fidelity. Of my office with fidelity. Congratulations. What I'm going to do is we're going to seal it. We'll get the more thank you. Thank you. Congrats.
Joe? Oh, you can sit down. Go sit down. We're not done yet. Go sit down. You're on board somewhere now.
I guess the voice is more bottom. Thank you, guys.
Very good. Terrific. I appreciate the board's indulgence to get through that quickly. I do appreciate it. We now move on to the second round of public comment after our first round was so successful this evening. Is there anybody who's going to make public comment? You have 3 minutes.
May I be the first member of the public to congratulate you and wish you best of luck in your service to the school board. And I'll be watching from afar. Hi. One of the reasons why I come to all the meetings is I started way back in the 90s advocating for Second High School. And I went to like 5 years where I only missed 2 facilities meetings. And I got to learn a lot about facilities just by going to those meetings. And I believe it's those committee meetings where you learn more about the school district than you do at board meetings. That would be my piece of advice. And my second piece of advice to all board members is you never know what the weather's going to be when you leave the meeting compared to when you come to the meeting. So you might always want that jacket, that umbrella, or whatever in your car. I stopped coming to meetings for a couple years after they decided to build a second high school. And occasionally I would write board members emails and they wouldn't even receipt to me, I received your email, thank you for your input. Like I got nothing. It was like sending my emails into the void. And so I decided, in order to talk to them, I had to come in person. So I'm going to try again, emailing and see if I get any emails back. And if I do, I could stay at home on Thursdays. Thank you very much.
Any other? Very good. Board comment?
I have an announcement. There was an executive session prior to tonight's meeting on matters of potential litigation.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. I want it noted that it was 1 hour, just for those people who think that I go long. With that, I think we're going to be adjourned. Thank you all very much. Congratulations, Mr. Hidalgo. Drinks initially are on you. Thank you.
Congratulations.